not just momentum, it's allegiance. Whose kingdom are you building? Picture a man, just a worker on payroll, but now he's in service to a king with control. He ain't royalty, he ain't rich on his own, but he walks through palace's golden throne. Private jets, first class suites in the sky, not cause he earned it, but who he stands by. He's just a servant, but he rides in grace, cause when you serve the king, you rise to his place. So too when the soul bends low, to serve the Melech, the one we all owe. Each mitzvah's a mission in order divine, and Hashem supplies tools so your light can shine. You learn, adapt, and suddenly too, you guard your eyes and more strength comes through. It's not luck, it's not your own plan, it's the world reshaping to fit a servant a man. It's not momentum, it's royal provision. You chose your king, now comes the mission, but flip that coin, the path ain't the same. There's another kingdom with another name. Who you serve shapes your world. Your rise, your fall, your fire unfurled. Every deed digs your lane, every choice builds a chain. Are you a soldier in the king's holy name, or a pawn in the hands of a darker flame? Now flip the lens, the sinner's route starts with one slip, then more leak out. He steps from light into shadow's den and thinks it's random, but look again. He served the answer just once, no big deal, but now temptation's got iron and steel. Doors open where they once were shut, sins call louder and he's stuck in the rut. Why? Cause he switched his team. Now impurity fuels his dreams. The Satan don't pay with gold and wine, he pays with cravings that twist your mind. You wanted escape, you got a chain. You wanted thrill, now it's silent pain. Sin empowers, but not for good. It builds your prison, bricks, sin and wood. Who you serve shapes your world. You'll rise, you fall, your fire unfurl. Every deed digs your lane, every choice builds a chain. Are you a soldier in the king's holy name, or a pawn in the hands of a darker flame? This ain't just about what you do, it's about what world you're stepping into. Every act is an oath, every step a claim. You serve Hashem or you serve the shame.
It's one of the new songs coming up.
No neutral space. Every move builds or breaks your place. So don't just ask, is this right or wrong? Ask whose kingdom am I helping grow strong? Serve Hashem, he'll lift you high, give you strength you can't even quantify. He'll expand your time, your means, your scope, feed you clarity.
We only played through the music.
And it pulls you in, gives you tools to multiply sin, makes you feel
bunch of songs, a few dozen songs already on YouTube channel.
So you choose your master, your fate, but know this truth before it's too late. No one rises by chance or luck, we rise by who we choose to trust. Who you serve shapes your world.
Music is not forbidden, no. Especially not Shuvah music.
Ask what you're doing. Ask who you're doing it for. Because who you serve shapes everything.
B'Shem Hashem na'aseh v'natzliach, Shiur Torah, Bruchim Habayim. We're back here on our Tuesday night War of Amalek series. Tonight's shiur is going to be for the Refuah Shlema and Hatzlacha Rabba for all of Am Yisrael that is under attack by Amalek's descendants, the Iranim, Yimach Shemam v'Zichram, the leadership over there, the literally evil of the world, especially the Khomeini, the wicked Haman at the top. Certainly there are some decent people there, but they're certainly not in the leadership. They're suffering, unfortunately, under the dictatorship over there that wants to destroy everyone, including their own people. So tonight's shiur is going to be for the Refuah Shlema and Hatzlacha Rabba of Am Yisrael that's under attack. Unfortunately, there are many missiles that are being shot at Israel, and some of them are hitting, causing people to become homeless overnight. And Baruch Hashem, they're reaching out to us to help them, and we started a campaign. We've already sent a bunch of money, even though the campaign literally barely saw 24 hours. We already we sent money ahead of the campaign because the needs are there. We even have a video that perhaps we'll show this on YouTube tomorrow when this shiur goes on, of one of the people that came to us showing us how his house was destroyed, a video of his house, in Bnei Brak. destroyed a young couple that just literally started their life, and already they have to deal with these issues. So tonight, BeEzrat HaShem, anyone that wants to donate to contribute will be able to on our campaign on our website, BeEzratHashem.org, and there's a special campaign that we have for this. Also for the Refuah Shlema and Hatzlacha Haba for Rabbi Efraim ben Shulamit, Rabbanit Sarah bat Anat, Rabbanit Levana bat Sarah, Sarah bat Levana, Avimori David ben Esriya, Imimorati Doris bat Jora, and BeEzrat HaShem, all of Am Yisrael and all the righteous Noahis that continue to contribute, continue to learn with us, continue to help us do all the amazing things that we're doing, Baruch Hashem. So, Rabotai Kareem, being the fact that the topic of war is on everybody's mind, whether you are in the financial channels or the gossip channels, or you're just simply talking between friends, obviously everybody's talking about the war that's happening. Hundreds and hundreds of missiles are being shot at Israel, and as I said, unfortunately some of them are hitting places in Tel Aviv. One of the places was close enough to Bnei Brak that the odif, the remains of all of the boom that came from it ended up destroying places in Bnei Brak. And of course, people are scared because until now they had the Chazon Ish and his promise, they had the Rav Kanievsky's promise that missiles will not land in Bnei Brak, but now that these two tzaddikim are out of this world, people are very worried, especially after seeing what happened. Just the remains of the boom from one missile literally destroyed enough to shock people into reality that the rest of Am Yisrael is in. That's a very difficult reality. Of course, there's unfortunate situations where people have died. Hundreds are injured, whether it's in Tel Aviv or it's in other parts of Israel. Bat Yam, Haifa, all of these different places are under attack. And Rabotai Kareem, while you may be sitting on your comfortable couch and sleeping in your comfortable bed without being worried about any missiles or any alarms, or sleeping in some type of underground unit to protect yourself, you cannot just continue sitting on your hands doing nothing. If you love Am Yisrael, if you love the Torah, you have an obligation to help Am Yisrael. You have an obligation to do something, not just worry about making bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvahs and weddings and all types of other personal affairs. You have to worry about your brothers and sisters. This is the reason why we started the campaign, to get as many of you as possible to help us help Jewish people that are have lost their home, have lost their their everything in just a second. And there are many of them. We already sent money, and BeEzrat HaShem, Hashem will send us enough of you that we'll be able to send a whole lot more. But we've sent a whole lot, and before ever raising even a single dollar, before even launching the campaign, because that's just the motto of our organization throughout all of the years. We pretty much find out what the need is, send as much money as possible, and then let Hashem figure out how to pay us back to pay for all of it. And that's Baruch Hashem has worked and has helped countless people. So those of you that are waiting with your retirement accounts and your savings accounts and your Bitcoin accounts and all types of accounts, I'm not telling you to empty them out. I'm saying use part of them to help us help Am Yisrael. You could donate on our website, you could donate on the campaign page, you could donate cryptocurrency like some people like to do, you could donate stock, you could donate money, whatever it is that you want to donate generously. This is the time to do it, Rabotai. It's not a small war against a bunch of terrorists with flip-flops. This is a very serious war, and unfortunately it doesn't seem like it's going to end anytime soon. But of course, aside from this, that you already know, that perhaps you should already know, I'm sure that all of you have had at least one conversation, if not more, about the war. And what are the rules for war? What are the rules needed to have Israel win the war? Is it going to be like Gaza, 600 years against terrorists with flip-flops and still not winning? Or is it going to be something else, BeEzrat HaShem? Iran has been threatening Israel for decades. Ever since I was a kid growing up in Israel, I remember that Iran was threatening to destroy Israel. And that hasn't stopped. Khomeini, Yimach Shemo V'zichro, the descendant of Haman Agagi, the Amalekite, is continuing the baseless hatred of the Jews for no reason. Now, the war has begun. Will this end up being the beginning of Gog and Magog? We don't know. All we know is that there's a war. There are missiles, and the missiles are hitting. And yes, while everybody is celebrating how Israel attacked and they killed a bunch of the leaders and they destroyed a bunch of things for that their weapons and so on. Bottom line is they're still able to send missiles. They're still able to fight back. This is not a small country. This is a country that's 10 times bigger than Israel. 10 times bigger. Just do the math here. We're talking about a country with nearly 100 million people. Israel with the Arabs in them is 10 million. So we're talking about a massive country. Not someone that's just going to sit there and, do nothing. Especially since this has been their mission for decades. But the question is, will this war be a success or a disaster like the war in Gaza for the last 600 years? Rabbi Wasserman, over 80 years ago, wrote this kuntres that we've been learning for the last year or so, that literally we see, not only was he divinely inspired then to write what's relevant to now, but his divine inspiration is still influencing us today as we give each shiur at its perfect timing. Rav Elchanan Wasserman's War of Amalek series is now discussing the rules of war. What led to our past success and failures. Should we be political and humanitarian? Or should we destroy the enemy without thinking twice? This and much more, BeEzrat HaShem, will be discussed. Rav Elchanan Wasserman, in section 24, tells us things that perhaps some of you remember us mentioning nearly 2 years ago, when I was in Israel and the October 7th happened, and everyone thought that, while we should fight, we should do it the political way. We should do it the way the nation suggests we should do it. And when I said in a lecture that according to the Torah, there's no mercy when it comes to war, some of you understood, while others were shocked. In fact, one of the leaders of Hezbollah, the terror organization, took a clip of our video, of our Torah lecture, and showed it to the government, showed it in the news, saying, look, this is what the Jews are saying. Unfortunately, for us, while this is what the Jews are saying when they're observing Torah and mitzvot, this is not what the government of Israel, that's comprised of Zionist, atheist heretics, actually did. The Torah tells us in multiple places about Amalek. Milchama LaHashem be'Amalek midor dor. The war against Amalek is a war of Hashem that's going to be from generation to generation. The descendant of Haman, the Amalekite from Paras, from Iran, back then he was from Iran. He's still from Iran today. Khomeini, Yimach Shemo V'zichro, is trying to destroy us, just like his grandfather, Haman. And the first thing we see from our sages is that all wars begin from spiritual powers. It's not just fighting because of oil or because of land or because you just don't like each other because somebody stole somebody else's wife or money or whatever other type of foolishness that people argue about. No, no, no. Wars between nations begin with spirituality. Each nation has an angel, a sar, and that fight starts in heaven based on the merits and the sins of Am Yisrael, based on the merits of the sins of Iran. And the moment we uproot the spiritual powers of the enemy, they also lose their physical powers. We saw this in Spain, we saw this in Turkey, we saw this in Germany, which we'll talk about later on. But Rav Wasserman starts off by telling us a reminder of our past successes and failures and current situation still today as it was the same during his day. And he says the previous generations would seek out what the Torah says we must do in every specific situation and time that Israel found itself between the nations. One sheep surrounded by 70 wolves. Already we see that there is an extraordinary difference. The Rav Wasserman is noting the previous generations would go to the Chachamim and ask him for guidance. What should we do in this situation? We are among the Spaniards that although they enjoyed how the Abarbanel, the extraordinary, glorified Torah sage, built their economy as a treasurer of the country, made them the most powerful country in the world, and had they not kicked out the Jews, they would have literally ruled over the entire world. But due to the hatred of Isabella Imach Shema V'Zichra, of the Jews, they kicked out the Jews, then after they murdered them with heinous, horrific, vicious ceremonies, the auto de paix, that I highly recommend everyone to read about. What actually happened to Am Yisrael during the Spanish Inquisition. We have not forgotten. But during that time, before they kicked everybody out, the Abarbanel, the extraordinary Torah sage, was the treasurer, was the right hand of the King of Spain. In fact, the King of Spain, Ferdinand, offered Abarbanel to remain in Spain with 10 other Jewish families, just because he liked making all the profit from him. But Abarbanel says, no, I'm going, if you're kicking out my nation, I'm going with my nation. And he left all of his wealth, all of his money, everything behind. When Am Yisrael left, they also took with them the merits, the spiritual strength that the Spanish nation had at the time for hosting the Jewish people. Being a home to illustrious Jewish communities was a big merit for the Gentile nation. And Hashem rewarded them for it. But when they kicked us out, quickly the empire of Spain collapsed and has become just another country today. Nobody thinks of them as a powerhouse, as a major nation. Needless to say, no one thinks that they're remotely close to ruling over any part of the world, including even their own country. They lost the spiritual strength. They lost everything. Germany was a house to many Jews, although the intermarriage of Jews with Gentiles in Germany, because of secularism, Zionism, the Enlightenment, and all of the other things that were anti-Torah there, led to high level of intermarriage and other things that are against the Torah. Germany went from being one of the a barbarian nation that stemmed from the Roman Empire, split up into 300 nations, into uniting, just like the Gemara in Masechet Megillah says, that the barbarian nations will unite, 300 of them, and become one, and try to destroy the entire world. This is exactly, as the Gemara says, 2,000 years ago, exactly what happened. And the Gemara even says the name Germany, Germania of Edom. Germania got the blessing of success, becoming a powerhouse, because they hosted many Jews. Huge Jewish population in there. And they nearly conquered the entire world. But when they started massacring the Jews, although it looked like they were winning at first, their malach lost everything, and eventually they were destroyed and have not recovered until this day. No one thinks of Germany as anyone that rules the world or any major power at all. The same happened with Turkey. The Turkish Empire literally ruled the majority of the world at one point. Until recent days, until recent history. There were huge, illustrious Jewish communities in Turkey. Great Torah sages came from there. But at some point, the hatred of Ishmael on Yaakov and Am Yisrael led them to all types of massacres of Jewish people. Eventually, the majority of the Jews left Turkey, leaving a relatively small community there to this day, surprisingly. But the merits of hosting the Jewish people left along with the Jewish people, and the empire of Turkey was destroyed in an embarrassing, horrific way, from being a world ruler to just being another annoying country that no one really pays attention to. That even their own people want the leadership uprooted from the world. Rav Wasserman is trying to explain to us that if we look at things from the Torah's perspective, that all of these wars begin with spirituality that end up influencing the physicality of the world, we would make different decisions. Just like our forefathers did. Just like the Torah communities of past did. And he says that in the past generations, the people, the leaders, would come to the Chachamim, would come to the Torah sages and ask them, what should we do in this situation? And the Chachamim would tell them. Because the people understood that we were a sheep surrounded by 70 wolves. One of the rules of war that I mentioned in the past, and it's well known, is what the Midrash Agadah in Parashat Mishpatim, in chapter 22, section 1, says, Abba le'orgecha ashkem le'orgo. Someone comes to kill you, you have to kill them first. It's a mitzvah to kill them first. And this is actually what is written in several places in the Torah, and what was paskin ta'alacha. It's very logical. You don't have to be a Torah scholar to understand it. So when the leaders would come to the sages and hear this, they would do it. They would protect themselves. In fact, even until recent history, when we still had Rabbi Yosef alav shalom among us, there were some leaders that listened to Chachamim. Eli Yishai, from the Minister of Defense in Israel, came to Rabbi Yosef, asking him about what does the Torah say in regards to attacking an enemy. Rabbi specifically explained to him, no military steps on the ground are allowed until the Air Force of Israel flattens the land, destroys the enemy. Because we're not allowed to put our dear soldiers in unnecessary danger. Don't send our soldiers to fight on the ground until you flatten the land. And Eli Yishai listened to him. And for years, Israel benefited from this Da'at Torah, which protected our soldiers. But unfortunately, we see that today, Bibi Netanyahu, who has a Tanakh shiur every Tuesday, is like Doeg Adomi, who just reads but doesn't take into account and implies to his life. And therefore, he does not listen to Da'at Torah. He doesn't even care about Da'at Torah. One of the prime examples of it is how they have dealt with the war in Gaza. How Hamas threatened to destroy Israel for years. They had published videos of the training camps of the terrorists. In fact, they were literally training hundreds of yards or literally a few miles away from the border that they ended up breaking with just a little tiny tractor and a few scissors before massacring thousands of Jews on October 7th. They said clearly they're going to kill the Jews. They said clearly that's their desire, that's their mission, that's their MO. And if somebody would have asked Da'at Torah, they would have known somebody's trying to kill you. You have to follow what Torah says. But no, Bibi Netanyahu didn't do that. And we see what happened. Further, to put more salt on the wound, we saw how they fought the war. Instead of listening to Da'at Torah and flattening that land and turning it into a football field, before sending any of our dear soldiers there, Bibi sent our dear soldiers on the ground. And unfortunately, many have died. Countless have been injured. Just a few days ago, in the last couple of weeks, 4 soldiers died. Not because they were trying to save the hostages. It has nothing to do with the hostages. Simply fighting on the ground without following what the Torah says. Because Bibi does not believe that the Torah has everything in it. He thinks it's just a book of stories. He doesn't understand what Rav Wasserman is saying here, that we are a sheep surrounded by 70 wolves, which means that the smallest misstep and the sheep is gone. David HaMelech, in Tehillim chapter 30 verse 8, says, Istarta panecha iti nival. He tells Hashem, should you conceal your face, I would be confounded, defeated, gone. David HaMelech understood how much he needed Hashem and his Torah to fight the endless wars that David HaMelech had to fight and win. Because David HaMelech knew that no matter how strong, what weapons you have, if you do not have Hashem, our shepherd, you do not have anything. When you start thinking that you are the wolf instead of the sheep, you are unfortunately mistaken. Because you think that you are just like one of the other nations. You've forgotten our history of how, even under the impossible situation of Am Yisrael in Egypt, when we were slaves, Hashem took us out of Egypt. If that were not enough, read about the wars of Yeshua ben Nun against over 30 Canaanite nations, defeating all of them, destroying them, some without even a sword, surrounding their walls each day for a week, until the wars that were unbreachable until that moment collapsed into the ground. Yad Hashem. Now that wasn't just the wars that we had. We had many wars throughout history. When Gidon got his prophecy, he was just a young man, righteous young man, not a soldier, not a warrior. And we were under rule, vicious rule, where to go fight against the enemy was not even in anybody's imagination. Hashem told Gidon, gather everyone. Gidon gathered tens of thousands of soldiers that really did not even have weapons. They had all types of tools from farming. Hashem told them, no, that's too many. You have 30,000? That's too many. What do you mean? But the enemy has over 500,000 of them. Over 500,000 enemy. 30,000 is still small. No. Even though 30,000 is small in comparison to the enemy, still a significant number that people can think that maybe it's just because the Jews were expert fighters with special weapons. No. I want to make sure you realize that all of the people realize Hashem wins the wars. Hashem ish milchama. God is the God of war. In so many words, HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Gidon, cut the people down. To what number? 300. 300 against over 500,000 of the most vicious warriors on planet Earth at the time. 300. Just yesterday were farmers. Just yesterday were starving. 300 against hundreds of thousands. And we won. Now you don't see any part of the Torah throughout any of the wars, and there are many, whether it's the wars of Shaul HaMelech, David HaMelech, Yeshua ben Nun, Gidon, the wars against Sisera at the times of Dvorah, of Ehud. All of these wars, you don't see a single time where there's political talks and negotiations and let's be humanitarian and we're not going to attack when it's a specific time of the day and we're not going to attack until we give you a warning and you didn't see any of that. Any part for thousands of years that we have been fighting wars, none of this has ever happened. This is a recent invention of the Zionist that literally will do everything the opposite of the Torah, even if it means endangering their own people. The Torah teaches us everything, including the rules of war. And if we do not realize that we are a sheep surrounded by 70 wolves, then we're going to act as if we're the wolf, and unfortunately, suffer consequences. So long as the shepherd is overseeing the sheep, the wolves stay away. The moment that the shepherd looks away, the sheep are hopeless and helpless. This is what David HaMelech was scared about. As he said, should you conceal your face, I would be defeated. But that's also why in Tehillim 121 verse number 4, David HaMelech says, Ine lo yanum velo yishan shomer Yisrael. Behold, he neither slumbers nor sleeps, the guardian of Israel. Don't worry, the shepherd is not going to fall asleep. He's not going to look away. He's the guardian of Israel. So what leads to disasters? When we disregard his Torah and start thinking that we are the powerful wolves, that we can do it on our own, so the shepherd hides his face. Go ahead. You think you're one of the wolves? Go ahead. Go fight the wolves. Rav Elchanan Wasserman is saying here, while in the past, our nation would come to the Chachamim and ask, what is the Da'at Torah? Because they knew where they stood. But these free thinkers whose entire ideology is the motto of let's be like the Goyim, let's be like the nations. And therefore they choose to do things politically in the ways of the nations. Ways which are not fit or appropriate for our nation. In our condition, especially today, says Rav Wasserman. Certainly he's referring to today, his time, but it's as much today as it was today back then. As Rabbi Efraim said in the shiur today, look at these Zionists. Look what this government of Israel is doing. They want to be humanitarian during war. An oxymoron for morons. Humanitarian during war? Why do they want to be humanitarian? Because they want to be liked by the nations. So they go and warn the enemy before they attack. They send them notes. Thousands of notes. Get out of this area, we're going to bomb it. What nation on planet Earth has ever done such a thing? Tell the terrorists to run away because we're coming. Why do they do this? Why do they tell the soldiers that when a terrorist attacks inside Israel, don't shoot to kill him? Injure him in the feet. One soldier that killed a terrorist went to jail. Soldiers are scared to fight for their own people. They have no problem beating up the religious people. But go and see if they're willing to do that to the Arab terrorists that are clearly saying we want to kill you. Who didn't see the videos during October 7th that were publicized as the Hamas terrorists were bringing the Jewish hostages into Gaza? The entire street comprised of Ishmael's descendants were celebrating by hitting the Jewish hostages, torturing them, doing everything, celebrating, cheering as if it's a simcha. They're not shy about it. They don't hide the fact that they hate Am Yisrael. But the Israeli government says, no, we need to be humanitarian. Which ends up meaning they want to endanger the lives of our soldiers in order to save the lives of the enemy. That's the only reason why a war that should have lasted less than 24 hours is still going on for 600 days. In fact, for those of you that are so far away from Israel, you're not aware, one of the most bizarre things you will ever hear in your life has been happening during this 600-day war. That while Israel says, no, we're going to destroy Hamas, we're going to win, 2 years into it, a tiny little place, they still are fighting with all of the weapons they have. They're still fighting, and there's still Jewish soldiers dying. How could this be? Just do what, if you're already going to follow what the nations do in politics, follow what the nations do in war. Did you see the Americans helping Iraq or Afghanistan or Japan or Germany while they were fighting them? No. In fact, it was the opposite. But no. The Israeli government, one of the main things that they're doing over the last 2 years against Hamas is continuing to provide them with electricity, continuing to provide them with water, and continuing to provide them literally trucks after trucks after trucks full of food. They're providing the enemy electricity, water, food to strengthen them so they can have strength to kill more Jewish soldiers. The Torah calls us the great, wise nation. How did we turn into such stupid people? Answer: when you abandon the Torah, you abandon wisdom. Torah says, Am chacham v'navon, agoy gadol hazeh. That the nations are supposed to look at Am Yisrael as a wise, great nation. I can assure you, every nation, including our enemies and our allies, looks at Israel as the stupidest place on planet Earth. How are you supplying your enemies with supplies during war? Oh, you want to be humanitarian? Did you see America be humanitarian when they fought against their enemies? Does Pakistan and India send each other gift bags during their wars every other month? Does China send their enemies all types of gift bags and food and supplies during their battles? What nation in the history of mankind supplied food and water to their enemies? And you call that a war? When you ignore the Torah, Rabotai Karim, you ignore wisdom. Khomeini, Yimach Shemo v'Zichro, the leader in Iran, more powerful than anybody else in that place, has been screaming for decades of how much he wants to destroy Israel. Even after the recent successful attacks by Israel that killed many of the leaders that were under him, in charge of the Air Force and all types of other strategic parts of his defense and his army, destroyed a huge amount of his weapons. He's still screaming that he's going to destroy Israel. Still now. Even a stupid dog stops attacking at some point. But no, Khomeini continues. Now you would think if the enemy is so avid about wanting to destroy you, the first thing you would do is what? Destroy the enemy. You'd be surprised that while Israel was successful in killing many of the leaders in the army of Khomeini in Iran in the last few days, the mission, according to all people that have a brain, was a massive failure. Why? Israel had the opportunity to kill Khomeini also. And they chose not to. Yes, they chose not to kill Khomeini, the one that's leading Iran to shoot hundreds and hundreds of missiles at Israel, and still after everything continues to do it, and says that as soon as he gets an atomic bomb, he's going to shoot it. That same guy, he was literally right next to the shooter. All the shooter needed, all what was necessary was just the okay. And Khomeini no more. Israel said no. They had a chance to assassinate him during war. Don't say it's not like just average Tuesday. They're already killing a bunch of others. They're already destroying a bunch of things. The leader, no. Is that a wise thing? Does that show that they are a wise group of leaders? The problem is, Rabotai, is that the leaders do not want to understand that the hatred of the nations, such as Iran, on Israel, is what the Torah calls baseless hatred. The Mishnah in Masechet Avot says that love that depends on something will not last. So if you love your spouse because of money, because of looks, because of something, that love will not last. Because you don't love them, you love what they have and what they give you. So if that thing is gone, the love will be gone too. But love that's not dependent on something is a love that will last. The same goes with hatred. Hatred that's dependent on something could also go away. If you hate somebody else because he opened up a business right next door to you, but he decides one day, you know what? I'm going to retire. You know what? You want my store? I'll give it to you for free. All of a sudden, your nemesis, your enemy becomes your best friend. Oh, you know, I always liked you, right? I always liked you. I always respected you, even though I didn't act nice. I'm sorry. Thank you very much. You're so considerate, giving me $1 million business for free. Thank you. What happened? Just yesterday you hated him. Yeah, I hated him because he was my competition. But now that he's not my competition anymore, I don't hate him. She hated her because she had this. So after that, one thing she hated her for is gone. She doesn't hate her anymore. But hatred that's baseless, that has no reason, will never go away. And therefore, Rabotai Karim, our sages teach us that the hatred of the nations on Am Yisrael is a baseless hatred. It will never go away no matter what you do and what you give them. It doesn't matter what you do for the nations, they will ultimately hate you anyway. We saw this in Spain. We saw this in Germany. We saw this in Egypt. We saw this throughout all of history. Who built Egypt to become the most powerful country in the world, if not Yosef HaTzadik? Yosef HaTzadik built the country to a world power, the richest in the world, the most powerful in the world. What happens in the end? Paro forgets all of that intentionally and enslaves the Jewish people while murdering their children. Fast forward, just 500 years ago. 500 years ago, before anyone knew more than some famous words from the Spanish language, no one cared so much about Spain. The Abarbanel, a Jewish sage who wrote commentary on so many parts of the Torah, you just don't understand how somebody can do that in one lifetime, even if they study 24 hours a day for 100 years, needless to say, while being a treasurer for multiple countries, building multiple countries. The Abarbanel, Rabotai Karim, built Spain, empowered them, enriched them. What do they give us in return? The Spanish Inquisition, where they burned Jews alive simply because they said Shema Yisrael, simply because they believed in the one God instead of the Trinity and all types of other idolatry that the Christians pushed. Germany became a world power. Many of the powerful figures in their science department, in their politics, in their medicine, in every part of their economy, many of them were Jews. What does Germany return? A Holocaust. And these are just a few of the endless number of stories, Rabotai. Endless number of stories. Name a country that the Jews lived in and you'll find the same exact story repeats. Why? Because Esav hates Yaakov and Ishmael will continue to try to kill Yitzchak. Yitzchak is only 1 year old. In Sefer Bereshit, he's 1 year old. Ishmael is 14. But he decides he wants to kill Yitzchak. But he doesn't want to make it obvious. So he makes him stand and then shoots an arrow, pretending he's shooting for the apple, but in reality he's shooting to kill Yitzchak. When Sarai Imenu notices this, he's like, no, I was just kidding. What do you mean you're just kidding? You almost killed my son. Every other day he's almost killing the son. Why? Ishmael wanted to kill Yitzchak and he still does. He still does. Because he's a Pere Adam. He was created this way. Yes, Esav was the twin of Yaakov. But Esav hates Yaakov. That's the way he was created. Certainly good people came out of Esav. Rabbi Meir Bar Anes, Rabbi Akiva, Shmaya and Avtalion came from Edom, came from Esav. But unfortunately, so did Amalek. So when the Jewish people forget that not everybody is Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Rabbi Meir Bar Anes, and Shmaya and Avtalion, You can't treat all of Edom the same. You can't start thinking that they love you because you live next door to them and your kids play together in the backyard. The Holocaust was in our grandparents' day, Rabotai. Many are threatening to have another Holocaust now, if it was up to them. If not for our merciful God, it would have already happened again. We saw how the world reacted to the Jewish people around the world after we were attacked and massacred on October 7th. Instead of everyone feeling bad for us, all of a sudden the anti-Semitic empire rose from the grave. Everyone became anti-Semitic, apparently. If you think that these are just historical lessons, just in the last 10 days, Spain, the very same Spain that the world forgot about, gathered 140 nations in the United Nations to vote against Israel in order to force them to stop the war with their enemies in Gaza and give up on getting the hostages back. Meaning not only stop the war against your enemy, but also give up on your own people. Let them die. This is the Spain, the very same Spain that massacred us as a celebration 500 years ago. If it was up to them, they would do it again now, apparently. But yet Israel wants to be humanitarian with the enemies. They want to negotiate and politicize with the enemies. Following the political way of the nations, instead of the Torah, only increases the danger and does not lower it. It's not like the described scholar Ben Shapiro, at least he thinks he is. He thinks the Mashiach is going to be a politician. Although the Rambam says we're only going to know everything that the Mashiach will do once he comes, and a lot of the prophecies, not all of them have to be fulfilled. There's a lot of different things that could happen. One thing I can promise you for sure, the politician, Mashiach will never be. To be a politician, you have to be a liar. You have to be a kiss-up. You have to be a faker. The polar opposite of Mashiach, who will walk around with the signature of Emet of Hashem with him. Beruach piv yamit rasha, with just the breath that comes out of his mouth, wicked people will die. But because Ben Shapiro is a politician-minded person, he thinks that everyone's a politician. Perhaps he thinks he's Mashiach. He'd be surprised with what's going to happen to him when Mashiach comes. And not in a pleasant way. Rabotai Karim, what Rabbi Elchanan Wasserman is telling us here is that if we ignore the Torah, we're quickly going to forget that we are a sheep surrounded by 70 wolves. And that's exactly what these free thinkers running the Israeli government and other Jewish organizations, mostly secular, are doing now. They choose the politicians, they choose the policies of the political world in order to direct the Jewish people. Because they want to be like the nations. Even though these policies not only are not fit for us, but they're actually against our own interest. And in fact, it does not decrease anti-Semitism, rather it increases it. So much so that Rabbi Elchanan Wassman finishes this particular section, says, even when these politicians and freethinkers intend to do things that are for our better interest, still because they're not going in the way of the Torah, it will not help. And in fact, it will hurt us. It will damage us. What Rabbi Elchanan Wassman is emphasizing here is that we have 13 principles of our faith, one of which is that our Torah will never change. And just as the Torah says, what was, will be. What was back then, will be now, will be in the future. Nothing's new under the sun. After the October 7th massacre, I came out with a lecture where I spoke with you and we learned together different rules of war. Rule number 1 of war, somebody tries to kill you, coming to kill you, you kill them first. It's a mitzvah. Secondly, there's no room for mercy in war. Anyone that is endangering the Jewish people, man, woman, child, becomes a target. There's no difference between one and the other. Now, I understand that people's lefty, liberal, secular-minded ideology rejects this. Well, what did the baby do to you? Aside from the fact that one day that baby will turn out to be another terrorist, because that's the way they're raising them, this is what the Torah commands. You have a problem with the laws of God. Not with me. I didn't make these rules. And in fact, you can see this with your own eyes. Look what the Torah said to do. Had we followed what the Torah said to do just 600 days ago, not only would this war not have lasted 600 days, I would be surprised if it lasted 6 days. And we would have saved much more lives. Just following the laws of the Torah would have literally saved the lives of thousands and thousands of Jews. Now, when you go to war and you don't follow the Torah, automatically you lose that siyata dishmaya, the divine assistance. Even if it's, of course, there's the simple ones, there's no women in the army, there's no promiscuity, all of those things are obvious. If someone just got married in the last year, they don't go to war. If someone's afraid, they don't go to war. Someone built a house in the last year, doesn't go to war. There's different rules of war. But also there's the simple rule of don't have mercy on the enemy. Don't have mercy on someone that's trying to kill you. So if you are now telling the Israeli soldiers, don't shoot the enemy to kill, shoot them to injure, you are violating the Torah. Not only are you endangering our soldiers, you're violating the Torah. And not only are you violating the Torah by showing mercy to instead of killing the enemy, but actually you're violating multiple parts of the Torah, one of which that promises in the name of a Torah, one who is merciful on vicious people will end up being vicious on righteous people. In fact, even if the person who is being merciful on the vicious, even if the person is righteous, he'll get punished for it. One of the prime examples that we saw in the Torah is Shaul HaMelech. Shaul HaMelech, the Tanakh says, when he became king, he was like 1 year old. Not because he was literally 1 year old like the fools think, but rather because he was sinless, like a 1 year old baby. Shaul HaMelech was Kodesh Kodashim. But unfortunately, Shaul HaMelech made a mistake. When he fought against Amalek, he fought against Iran, he fought against Amalek, Rabotai. But instead of killing Agag, the leader of Amalek, he imprisoned him. Why did he do such a thing? Because Doeg Adomi, who was a Rasha, that learned Torah like it was philosophy, like it was mental stimulation, not like it has to apply to life. Doeg Adomi told him, listen, Agag is frail, is weak, you don't need to kill him, just imprison him, embarrass him, that's it. And Shaul listened to this, even though this was against the Torah, where HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself commanded to destroy Amalek, not imprison him, no mercy. The fact that Agag lived an extra 24 hours gave him the ability to bring another child to the world who snuck into the prison. And that woman eventually brought to the world the descendant of her, of Agag. Who? Haman. So the mercy that Doeg Adomi told Shaul that he has to have brought Haman that nearly destroyed all of Am Yisrael, as everybody knows. But that doesn't end there. Because anyone that knows about Doeg, who lost his share of the world to come, the Gemara in Masechet Sanhedrin says Doeg has no share of the world to come. Even though Doeg was in the Sanhedrin, but he was a Rasha. And the Gemara says someone that is merciful on the wicked, on the vicious people, will eventually be vicious on the righteous people. And what ended up happening when the Ruach stood confused, Shaul HaMelech, the righteous Shaul HaMelech, to think that maybe the Kohanim in the city of Nov were his enemies, he wanted to send his soldiers to go kill them. None of the soldiers wanted to kill the Kohanim. Everybody knew they were righteous. But Doeg, the Rasha, Doeg, the one that was merciful on Hagag the Amalekite, merciful on the vicious, he volunteered and he himself went and murdered all of the Kohanim. Doeg left the Bet Midrash and went and killed all the Kohanim. He had no problem being merciful on the vicious, and he also had no problem being vicious on the righteous people. Rabotai Karim, this whole mindset of being humanitarian in war and merciful in war is an ideology of the Satan. Just look at the histories of Am Yisrael. All of the wars. Even something as simple as a famous story of Yael. At the time of Dvorah, the prophetess. Dvorah the prophetess was Kodesh Kodashim. She was the judge. People would come to the palm tree to get her to paskin halacha for them. She was so modest. She didn't have, even though she was very wealthy, she did not have a special building for people to come. No, she wanted to make sure that she's not alone with any one man, that anybody's going to think perverted thoughts. So she went under a palm tree, a tree that barely has anything that covers anyone. So the judgment is out in the open. Everyone can see who's there. Dvorah said it was time for Am Yisrael to go and fight against Sisera. Sisera conquered the entire world. Sisera was the most powerful man, powerful army in the world. Dvorah says the time has come for Am Yisrael, the sheep, to go and fight against Sisera. And the prophecy was fulfilled and we went to war. And Sisera saw that he was losing, even though we were very few and he had literally millions of soldiers. He ran away. He went away into the section of the descendants of Yitro. The descendants of Yitro were living in a certain, were called Kenites, and they were living in a different section of Israel that was outside of the war. He went there. Inside the tent was Yael, a righteous, married Jewish woman, but her husband wasn't there. Sisera came in. Sisera did horrible things to her. But the moment he fell asleep, Yael the Tzadikah took one of the tools of the farm and put it in his head to make sure that he's uprooted from the world. She knew exactly who he was. She knew exactly how powerful he was. She knew exactly what's at risk here. She also knew he was sleeping. Oh, shouldn't you be merciful on him? He's sleeping. He can't even defend himself. No, you chamorim, no! He's an enemy. The moment you have a chance to fight the enemy, destroy him in whatever way you can. And guess what? Yael is a hero. Am Yisrael was saved from this villain because of Yael. If Yael was like the Zionist politicians, we'd still be under the rulership of Sisera till this day. But what can we do? When you have leaders that do not follow or believe in the ways of the Torah. The same Torah that promises us that it doesn't change, it never will change, also promises us that anyone that goes and gets advice from the elders of the Torah world, from Torah, Talmidei Chachamim, will not fail. The same Torah has a Kadosh Baruch Hu's signature in it. You come to a Chacham, you come to a Tzaddik, you come to someone as the Yirat Shamayim, seeking for advice, whether it's for your business, your marriage, your whatever it is, your nation, wars. You come to the Chachamim, that in itself is an assurance you will not fail. But today, Rabotai, what do people come to rabbis for? Do they come to them for their investments? Usually not. Do they come to them for asking them if they should buy a house or not? Usually not. Should they ask them, should they marry someone or not? No. Do they ask them whether they should have more kids or not? No. What do they ask rabbis usually? What time does Shabbat start? How much is Maaser? All types of things that they can usually find out on their own. So if the average people, even the religious ones, don't have emunat chachamim to the point where they come to chachamim for everything, what can we possibly expect from an atheist Zionist government that doesn't believe that the Torah is eternal, that every wisdom is in it? You expect them to come to the chachamim and ask them how to fight a war? They think they are wolves. They don't realize that they're sheep surrounded by 70 wolves. So what is it for us to do? We go back to the beginning of the issue. In the beginning of the issue, I told you every war starts with spirituality. The question you should have asked is, we know what makes Am Yisrael's spirituality increase or decrease. The more mitzvot we do, the more good we do, the more powerful we become, both spiritual and physically. What makes the nations like Iran suddenly more powerful? The same thing. Not their good deeds or their mitzvot, but ours. If we do mitzvot, if we follow Torah, if we keep Shabbat, we protect our Brit, we become powerful, and Esav and Ishmael become weak, become afraid of us. If we have LGBTQ marches and all types of Chilul Hashem and increase the sins, then that sin empowers Amalek, empowers Edom, empowers Ishmael. In fact, Rashi says specifically, Jews that are corrupt in their business dealings are directly empowering Amalek. So don't be surprised if one day, when the Mashiach arrives, or when somebody ends their life if they don't see Mashiach. Don't be surprised if one of the first things they tell you in Shamayim, do you know why Iran became so powerful all of a sudden? That they're able to shoot their missiles and reach targets in Israel? How did Amalek become so strong? How? There's something called cash advance business, which unfortunately has not only, but many Jews that are in that corrupt business called cash advance. When Jews are corrupt in their business, Rashi says, it empowers Amalek. So there are many corrupt businesses. And of course, we have to stay away from all of them. But unfortunately, the most popular corrupt business, predatory business that's impacting the Jewish world today is cash advance. And I promise you, every single one of those people that's in that business is empowering Amalek and will be punished for it. In the meantime, what can we do? What can you do? Try to help turn the tides. We have to increase our mitzvot. The sins, of course, if you make sins, stop them. But the sins of others, you can't fix everyone overnight. But at the very least, we can increase our mitzvot. Not just by baking challah for Shabbat, or saying Shabbat Shalom and praying and reading Tehillim. Those are all good. But we need to do more. We need to do something that's going to help more of our brothers and sisters do tshuva. When you get another dude to do tshuva, either by speaking to them, giving them a lecture, giving them a USB, giving them a book, setting up a lecture, donating so we could do it for you, whatever it is, when you support Kiruv, you're supporting the ability to help Am Yisrael do more mitzvot and return to our Father in heaven. And the more of us do tshuva, the stronger we become against Amalek. Rabotai Karim, there are many ways that a person can help. There's money, there's time, there's skill, there's effort, there's all types of ways. The question is whether you are going to do something about it or not. And even if you do something, are you doing your maximum, or are you just doing whatever is convenient while you sit there comfortable on your couch because you don't want to exert too much effort? Yael sacrificed her life and she saved Am Yisrael, and therefore she's remembered to this day. Had she run away, no one would even know she existed. Had she preserved herself and cared about herself, no one would know she existed. Gidon trusted in Hashem 100%, and therefore we know who he is. And he's part of eternal history. What will you be? Will you be one of the people that sacrificed the maximum in order to help Am Yisrael? Or will you be just another person that worried about themselves, preserved themselves, took care of themselves, and the only one that will remember you is you? Hopefully you choose to be somebody that needs to be remembered because you did something for Am Yisrael, rather than somebody that's just a distant memory. Now is the time, Rabotai Karim, to help Am Yisrael do tshuva. We have provided you endless ways to do that, whether it's with resources, or it's distributing books, or a lot of other ways. But now is the time to do the maximum, because we are already inside the war with Amalek. BeEzrat HaShem, this will be a shiur that will help you take action to help Am Yisrael in the situation that we're in now. Anyone that wants to donate can donate on the campaign. You can donate on our website, BeEzratHashem.org. There's a lot of ways to do it. You could also gather a group of people and get them to donate too, to help other people donate, to help other people use their resources well. It's a big mitzvah. It's even bigger than your donations. But needless to say, everyone needs to do something more than whatever they're doing and go to the maximum. Now is the time to do it. Am Yisrael is not in a good situation right now. We're inside the war of Amalek, with Amalek, Rabotai, on both sides. And since we cannot expect anything good coming from this government or the other government, we can do it ourselves though. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will help us. But we have to help ourselves first. BeEzrat HaShem, you choose wisely and you do something about it. Call to B'chal B'tzlacha. BeEzrat HaShem, we'll learn again soon.